New Thought Media Network. We are a global broadcast network of positive music, media, and entertainment, inspiring humanity's evolution along the journey of enlightenment and creating a world of love, peace, empowerment, and prosperity for all. New Thought Media Network. Positively inspiring.
Why, hello there. It's me, yes, me, Bonnie Gonzalez, your doula for grief. I just want to start this program coming from a place of gratitude, an attitude of gratitude and a heart that is just overflowing with gratitude. And I want to start by honoring New Thought Media Network for continuing to allow this dialogue on grief to be a part of their platform. Secondly, my producer, Joe Rothenberger, who, if Joe wasn't there, there would be no me. And I want to say third or last, but really the most important aspect that I am in gratitude for is for you, the viewer, for you that tune in every week and listen. And for those that may have just found this program for the first time, I want to let each and every one of you know that I am in gratitude and so appreciate your time and attention. And this gratitude comes from a place of what an honor and a privilege it is to be able to share with you my passion around loss and grief. And my mission is to move the needle on dialogue around loss and grief. I want to bring grief out of the shadows of our lives and right smack dab in the middle of our lives. And so I'm in just the deepest gratitude. And so for you that are joining me the first time, I do want to let you know that you have come to the right place to begin your journey on healing from grief. And you know, grief has a superpower. Grief's superpower is healing. If we can lean into the discomfort that appears, lean into that pain, allow ourselves to feel it and express it, the more we can do that, the sooner it lessens, the sooner it dissipates. Not that grief ever disappears, but it will not hold that same devastating intensity that is had on you when the event first happened. And know that loss is what we experience and grief is what we feel. Yes, and loss shows up in so many ways in our lives. We deal with loss, I was going to say almost daily, to different degrees. Yes, you know, death is the biggest loss that we'll ever experience. The biggest hole that will ever be in your heart is caused by the death of a loved one, the death of a pet. Death is the biggest. And after that, we do have other losses. How about a geographical move, divorce, loss of a friendship, loss of a job, not getting the promotion that maybe you wanted, although a loss of hopes and dreams, surgery, illnesses. So our list can go on. And not that I need to name them all, but just to know that loss is a part of our lives. And so having dialogue, having skills of ways of navigating this so that it doesn't leave us blindsided and totally devastated. And then going on to grief. Grief is what we feel. It's that sadness, that devastation, oh, that numbness that can come up, confusion. Those are all things that we feel in relationship to our loss. So with that said, let me just read a little something by Sabon Fusome. And I've read it before, but it's always good to hear it again. And she says, we experience joy and sadness. Many times we have grief that we don't have words for. We may have losses. And it's important for us to grieve, to recover from what we have lost. Grieving is a soul cleansing way to reclaim and recover our spirit. When we don't grieve, we stay in an unhealthy place and lose who we are. So it is very important to cry, to walk in nature, to express our grief so that we can feel safe and sane again. Also, our bodies need to recover from the loss. So that's Sabon Fusome, who made her transition a few years ago, a very young woman, but left her legacy here in her writings. So I just say thank you to Sabon Fusome for those words. And that is something that we can all ask ourselves around the loss that we may have had. Have I grieved enough? Have I cried enough? Have I walked in nature enough? Because when we can give ourselves permission to grieve, that is when the healing starts. So just asking yourself that. Have you grieved enough for any of the losses? And not necessarily just a person, but any other personal loss that you have experienced. And so with my saying that, I realized I didn't say anything about myself. Who am I? I did say it's Bonnie Gonzalez, which is always true. And I am a grief coach. I'm a registered nurse. I'm a religious science practitioner and a licensed soul collage facilitator. And also newly, I'm going to congratulate myself, a little pat on the shoulder, pat on the back. That will help me just to continue to move forward with my passion and sharing wisdom with the world around grief. I just finished a certified grief educator program through grief.com by David Kessler. It has been a life-changing program. Oh, what is that people say? Changing the trajectory of your life. I feel like there's a big change, and I'm excited to see where this goes. And I know in this excitement that I will be touching lives and bringing light to someone's darkness and helping them to navigate their path, their journey, their discoveries around grief. So I'm just, so feeling just so privileged to be able to continue to help in this way. So with all that said, that's a mouthful. I want you to make this hour about you. Well, now down to 50 minutes. Make this time about you. Grab a cup of water, a cup of tea or coffee or whatever it is you want to satisfy your thirst with, and just be a part of this program. Drop a comment. Let me know you're listening. If you have a question, put that in the comment box as well. Would love to hear from you. And so thank you. So with that said, today we are going to discuss, our theme is pet loss. And pet loss and the grief that follows. And the reason that I chose that, I have two really good friends of the heart that last week, in 1 week, both of them had to put their beloved pets down. One on Tuesday and the other on Friday. And I could just feel into their intensity of devastation, sadness, and loss. So I wanted to talk about that. I wanted to talk about that loss. Because sometimes in our society, pet loss gets classified as something called disenfranchised grief. And disenfranchised grief is when you have a loss that is not recognized or supported or honored or respected by society. And therefore, the griever does not get the support they need. They don't get that support of sympathy, given opportunities to really empty, opportunities to talk about whatever guilt they may have been feeling. They do not get an opportunity to express the depth and breadth of their sorrow. And when that happens, when we don't express our grief, it stays, it lingers, it gets pushed down, but it never goes away. And then we start to act out in different ways and maybe becoming just, oh my gosh, ballistic and upset in a restaurant if the food's not served on time, because we are really holding on to some deep pain and having a way to express it. So that's why I wanted to have this show today, so that we could begin to recognize the depth and breadth of sorrow that people that lose their pets. And so today I have a beautiful guest who has said yes to coming on to Your Doula for Grief to share her own personal and her personal story on losing her pets. And so I have Judith Roberts, and Judith Roberts lives in Oakland, California with her nephew and 2 cats. And she's been a licensed practitioner at the Oakland Center for Spiritual Living for over 10 years. For most of her career, she's been a corporate trainer, instructional designer, and technical writer, primarily with healthcare nonprofits. She is also a singer, and I can attest to that, a beautiful voice, a sound healer, a certified hypnotherapist, and student of shamanism. She has traveled extensively professionally as a volunteer and for personal pleasure. So help me to welcome to the show right now my dear beloved friend Judith Roberts. And that was one of the things that I didn't put on there, that Judith is a beloved friend, a dear friend. So Judith, thank you. Thank you for your yes today. And I know that you're in the middle of a busy day, so I just want to thank you for that and being in gratitude that you are taking the time to be here to share with our audience your own story of losing pets.
Thank you for inviting me, Bonnie. Thank you for inviting me. I'm happy to be here.
Yes, and you can show up uninvited if you'd like. Giving you that. Yes, Judith. So I just want to start with Judith, with your, can I start with a question before you share your story? Could you tell me what you feel the reason is that we have pets? Having a frame of reference. Why do we have pets?
You broke up a little bit. I didn't quite hear the question.
I'm sorry. Can you hear me better now? Is that better? Oh, I was just saying, just that question. Why do we have pets? Why do we have pets in our lives? To just give a frame of reference of, where it comes from. And then when we go into our story, then we have that frame of reference.
I think we have pets because they are companions. They offer companionship. They offer, I think it's really like offer friendship. And as we've heard the old saying that dogs love unconditionally. And I'm not sure if cats do. Cats are a little more selective, I think, but they have more. I don't know. They're a little more finicky or something. But sometimes pets do give unconditional love, and so there's companionship and comfort. I think there's a lot of comfort that pets give, and there's so many. I'm thinking primarily of dogs and cats, but people have parrots and people have snakes
and lizards
and guinea pigs and all rabbits, all kinds of things. So not all pets are give that kind of companionship. Maybe it's also a feeling of being connected with nature, being connected with another being who's not a human being.
Yes. And I was going to say, when you were talking about dogs and cats, it made me think of that dog is just God spelled backwards. That's how sacred a dog is. And someone said that that dogs love you unconditionally, but cats say, "I'm going to take a memo and I'll get back to you," or "I'll send you a memo and I'll get back to you when I'm ready for it."
Yeah, it can be like that.
Yeah.
There was a beautiful cartoon that I saw of somebody that had a new angel who had just arrived in heaven and was standing before God, the throne of God, and sitting in the throne of God was I think it was a golden retriever. And the angel is there kind of bewildered, and the golden retriever says, "My undying loyalty and unconditional love didn't tip you off?"
That's lovely, Judith. Thank you. And I was going to add to my thought of why we have pets. I feel that us as humans, we have a lot of love to give and want to embrace more and give more of it because it expands us as loving creatures. And I know I felt that when my kids had pets. It's like, teaching them to love and to care for something. So anyway, thank you. Yeah, thank you, Judith. Thank you. So I was going to ask you to share your story, Judith, with losing a pet. And I know you have several pet losses that you can speak to.
Yeah. As a child, we had dogs, and we lost several dogs over time. And I remember that there was no, I don't remember any acknowledgement of the loss or any ceremony or it was kind of like the dog was here and then the dog wasn't here. And I think that I don't remember grieving for those dogs, but I do remember feeling a loss and it not being expressed or acknowledged. As an adult, I've now owned 4 cats. I have 5 cats, and I've lost 3. And the first one I adopted from an aunt who passed away. And so I inherited her cat, and he came to me with illness. He was already ill. He was a senior. So I knew that I had been forewarned that he would probably pass away in a couple of years, which is what happened. I really came to love him. He was absolutely wonderful.
And what was his name, Judith? What was his name?
His name was Leroy. He came with the name Leroy.
Yes.
And Leroy, I knew when he was declining, it was really, really obvious. And so I wasn't sure about putting him down or not, because I had never been through this. I didn't know if I should put him down or if and I decided, because I had a friend refer me to a pet communicator who, everybody may not believe in, but I had had a good experience with this before. And so I called this pet communicator and I asked her to communicate with Leroy and ask him if he would rather be put down or he would rather die naturally. And
Ooh.
first explain, what being put down meant. And
Yeah.
his and she got a very clear answer from him, which she communicated to me. And she said that he said he would like to die naturally. And he knew he was dying. That was my first question. Do you know
Wow.
you're dying? And he said yes. And he seemed to know what that was about. And so his answer was, I'd like to die naturally, but if I'm not able to in 7 days, I would like you to put me down.
Wow.
It
Wow.
was very, very
Very
specific.
clear, huh? Very
Very
clear.
clear. So I honored that, and he passed away naturally on the 7th day.
Wow. Wow.
And and he was alone at home when he passed away. I knew it was close, but he passed away at home on his own. And then the next cat was Noche. Noche was one I adopted after Leroy passed away. About 5 months later, I got him from a shelter, Milo, from a shelter. And he was 10 months old. He was a young cat, and I had him for 14 years. So he was really a member of my family. That's the thing, that animals can really become a member of the family. I mean, if you think about
Man.
who you've lived with for 14 years, or raising a child for 14 years,
Right.
and Leroy got very ill, and he was on medications, and this is where I really learned something, that I kept him longer than um, probably was good for either one of us, because I wanted him around. But it would have been merciful for me to release him and let him go and have him put down for his quality of life. But I kept him on meds, and I just kind of kept him going under vet's care, under vet's advice. And when I was out of the country, he disappeared. And my friend and tenant was taking care of him, and he just disappeared one night and didn't come back. And so and we were communicating by text and everything. I was advised, and lots of people looked for him. It was pouring rain. He looked for him. My cousin and her daughter looked for him. Another friend, just spent days and days looking for him and calling him. And my friend Kent, who was taking care of him, felt that he was gone, that he had been taken by a predator or something like that. Um, and somebody was tracking this for me. Another psychic, psychic had been referred to me. I didn't even know her, but she offered her services for free, and she was trying to track him. And at some point, when I was there, I was in Nepal on business, but the business part of my trip had ended, and then I went on my own to explore, to see the Chitwan National Wildlife Reserve, because I love animals. And I went to Buddha's birthplace, to
Oh, wow. Yes.
Lumbini. So I did those two parts of the trip on my own, and I was near this Chitwan. I was staying at a hotel there, and that's when I learned that Noche had disappeared. And there was a point when all of a sudden I realized, there was something in me that knew that he was gone.
Mm.
And I wailed. I just realized, oh, I mean, somehow I knew, even though everybody was still looking for him, I just
Mhm.
wailed and wailed. I mean, the grief that came out was just like, whoa,
That
I,
needed
I
to
it's
happen.
something I haven't experienced very often. That deep of a release of grief,
Mhm.
and it was loud, and I was there in this little bungalow by myself, but somebody heard me and knew, something was wrong. And this very sweet little maid came to me,
Ah,
a sweet woman who didn't speak very fluently, but spoke English and asked me, what was going on, and if she could help. And,
mhm.
she just came to comfort me. And I told her what it was about. And um, she just listened. It was very, very sweet. Um, and then she shared some of her story, which was really traumatic, very, very traumatic. So I listened, I listened to her. And I learned from part of what I learned from that is how important it is to have uh, somebody just be able to listen
Yes.
and to offer support. I mean, sometimes we go through these things alone, and um but that's what some people choose. Some people, every death is different, and
Mhm.
every loss of a human and every loss of a pet is different, and everybody, they need different things at different times. So it's very individual in terms of how people want to be supported through a death.
Right.
um the last, but I did, when I got home from Nepal, I had a memorial. I held a memorial for Noche because he'd been with me so long, and so many people knew him and loved him. And we did a little remembrance ceremony with words, and
I held
someone,
a funeral for Noche. It was a funeral as far as I
a
was
funeral, and
concerned.
somebody gave me a beautiful thing. I thought if we had time, I might read, especially for those who may be listening who lost a pet recently, or at any time. And it's called Rainbow Bridge. And this was the first time I'd heard reference to the Rainbow Bridge before, but this was the first time I actually knew it had this whole description. I could read it, Bonnie, if we have time. But now I'll talk about the third one, because the third pet loss, which wasn't too long ago. That was in April. And that was another cat who I adopted as a senior.
Excuse me.
And
Judith, is that April of this year or April of last year?
that was, let me see, April of 2023.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to just clarify. I thought
Yeah.
that was something.
Yeah. Yeah, and what I referred to here was I had this cat cremated, and I got this lovely note back from the place that did the cremation, and they dated it. They dated it. They said Aslan was respectfully cremated on the 7th day of April 2023. And they
Mm.
wrote this lovely, lovely message. So he was a senior. He also came with an illness, uncurable illness, and he declined. He was ill for a while, but the sweetest little being, just the
Yeah.
sweetest little, lovely, gentle soul.
Mm.
And he did pass away naturally. And again, I asked my vet, these things are so hard to gauge. I asked my vet, I took him in, and he was still alert and curious and walking around, but unsteady on his feet. He was failing. And I asked
Mm.
the vet, should I put him down? Is it time? And the vet said I wouldn't be adverse to putting him down, which was
Yeah.
not a clear answer. And I felt like he had more. I felt like this little one had more time. and I said, well, I'd like to wait and see how he does over, I think I said over the next month. But
Yes,
in
yes.
2 days, all of a sudden he crashed. His systems failed. So he did die at home too, naturally. And then and then, around the first one, Leroy, I did a burial, and I had my
Oh,
family and friends, and we did a whole ceremony, and my niece dug a grave, and we did words, and it was very sweet, and I was supported. But this time I decided to do a cremation, and I have not yet released his ashes. I'm still, I'm not there. Things take time. So this has been over a year, and I have not yet released Aslan's ashes. So there's so much around this, Bonnie. It's such a
it,
such a rich subject.
well, I was going to say it's a subject that has so much depth and so many layers to it. And
Yeah.
listening to your story, Judith, I think you make the point of, or can bring the value to honoring our pets with ceremony. Because what happens with pet loss is people are embarrassed to say, I want to have a funeral for my pet, or, oh my goodness, this is really just taking my breath away. I feel totally numb inside, because I feel that if you have to rate deaths, that a pet loss is not as important as a person. We're really in that person's life. That pet is equally as important. Joe, our producer back there, was telling me, I hope it's okay that I share this, Joe, that he was saying that he felt he mourned harder and grieved harder for the loss of his pet dog than for his own family member. And I think too, Judith, I was going to bring this up when you talked about the pet being a family member, and being able to talk to them. You can have kids, but when you're going through something, you can talk to your pet honestly. You can say, those kids are driving me crazy. I'd give them away if a truck came by. I mean, you tend to be truly honest and know that whatever you share with your pet is really unconditionally loving you and being there with you. Whereas our family members sometimes can have expectations and disappointments with us, where your cat would never come meowing, oh, I'm disappointed that you didn't, that you didn't say goodbye this morning when you left. So I'm just saying that we can sometimes open up in ways with animals that we can't open up with humans.
Right. And if you have a pet for a long time, for years, like I had Noche for 14 years, he went through so many different phases of my life with me.
Exactly.
He went through a broken engagement with me, and he went through a broken wrist with me. There was this time, I mean, this is sort of amazing to me. My hand was in a cast up to my fingers, and just my little ends of fingers were sticking out of it, and I had to sleep with my hand raised, on a pillow. I'm kind of trying to demonstrate, but I'd sleep, but my hand had to be my arm had to be supported on a pillow, and I had to sleep with it raised. Well, Noche, and the cast went almost to my elbow. Noche came up onto my bed, stretched his body up along the length of the cast with his head at the end where my fingers were sticking out, and slept there.
Wow, to help support you through this difficult.
He slept with his body along the length of the cast. I think he just knew I was wounded, and he was trying to offer support or comfort in a way that he could. I was so amazed at that. He stretched his body out along the length of the cast. So yes, so they've gone through so many things with us, and they've been there as a comfort, and they've been there for not only for sad things, but for celebrations, for all the different phases of life. They're kind of in it with you. So,
Exactly.
so I can understand how somebody might mourn the loss of a pet more deeply than the loss of a family member if the relationship with the family member wasn't close, or if it wasn't a loving relationship. Just because somebody's a family member doesn't mean that you have a deep or a great or a heart relationship with them. You may,
Mhm.
but you may not. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Judith, yes. And you brought up another point that I want to talk about, euthanasia. When having to make that decision to euthanize your pet, that is truly, truly an agonizing decision to make. And you spoke a little bit on that about Leroy. So just some of your thoughts around having to make that kind of decision.
Well, I understand now that it's really an act of kindness for the animal. It can be an act of kindness for the animal, because when their body has deteriorated to the point that they don't have any quality of life, and
Mm,
maybe they're in pain. Sometimes it's hard to know if they're in pain or not. But,
right.
and they typically give signals. Sometimes they stop eating and drinking, which
Yeah.
means they're dying and they're ready to go. So when those signs come, it's merciful and kind,
Right. Right.
actually, to euthanize them, to send them on their way to their next, as we say in
Greatest to be.
Centers for Spiritual Living, their next phase of evolution.
Yes. I call it their
We
next
don't
greatest to
we
be.
don't we don't know for sure what's next, but
Right.
I do believe that there may be a next phase of evolution for them, that their spirit moves
Right.
on. Just like with humans, the body is no longer serving them, it's left behind. And they are now that energy of who they are, that life force of who they are, has now transitioned to some other dimension. In fact,
Ex-
Bonnie, would it be okay if I read this Rainbow Bridge? Because it's kind of a segue into it.
Well, I was going to say there's a couple more questions. I was thinking maybe
Okay,
we could
sure.
end with the
Oh,
Rainbow Bridge and
okay,
a couple more things that you brought up. And yes, you will have time to read that
okay.
one. I'm not going to let you out of here without reading that.
Yeah.
Um, but I did something you touched on too, about having lost a pet when you were a child.
Hmm.
That's another truly important topic. We could probably do a show on that,
Yeah.
because the thing with children losing a pet, that they're looking to their parents for what's going on. And it's really important. Now, to say this, if someone's out there with a pet, you have children, and your pet is ill and they do transition, it's really important to let your child see you grieve. Let your child see
Mm.
it validates the loss, the emptiness, the sadness that they may be feeling. And another really important thing that I didn't realize until doing some research on this, that sometimes children feel very guilty or feel like they caused their pet's loss. So,
Oh.
yeah. So I was going to ask you, as a child, what would you say to parents that, have a pet that's transitioning or that has transitioned? What would you say to those parents? But coming from the little girl Judith, what
Uh-huh. Well, I think what you just said, I actually hadn't thought about this before, about seeing the parents grieve.
oh yeah.
I think that's a lovely thing if the parents can grieve, and they can see, the children can see that the parents are sad and they feel the loss, and to do that openly. I just think
Yeah.
that would be very, very healthy. I didn't see
Mhm.
that. I didn't see that with our
Exactly.
with our dogs that we left, and one of them had been with us many, many years. It was a collie named Buffy, and
Oh,
Buffy. I just remember. I don't remember Buffy's death. I don't remember what happened. I just know that at some point we didn't have him anymore, and it just seems like. And then another dog. We lived in an area in Southern California where a fire came through, and that we were evacuating, and the dog ran away, and we weren't able to find the dog, and so we assumed the dog died in the fire. I think he ran towards the fire. um,
uh,
that dog was named Ginger, I remember. So we lost Ginger, and there was no ceremony, there was no acknowledgement, there was no, I think maybe there was something about that Ginger ran away, but there was no ceremony or acknowledgement of either of these deaths of these very
yes,
important dogs.
significant.
Oh, there was another dog named Archie. I don't know what happened to Archie. He was there at the same time as Ginger, I think, and I don't know. I just they were here and then they weren't here.
Mhm.
And I think it's important for children to have closure with the death of a or the death or the disappearance of a pet who's a family member.
Yes, who's disappeared. And Judith, if that is still a sadness or a wound or an area that still holds energy for you, it's not too late to go back and have a ceremony or ritual. I think
Yeah.
to Buffy, to Archie, and what was the last Buffy,
Ginger.
Archie, and
Ginger.
Ginger. Yes, the three musketeers, to honor them for in
Yeah.
your life, and just to say that. I mean, that's a power of ritual, and Judith and I have done a program on ritual, but I'm just adding that may be something you can do that would help to anyone that's listening that has had that experience. And the other point that I wanted to bring up was that people with euthanasia, and you were talking about how difficult it is to make that decision to euthanize your pet. Another thing I wanted to add to that is unburdening the guilt. Once people make that decision, to be able to unburden the guilt. I know I had a pet for my kids and had to have it put down, but the reason I had it put down is because the treatment was so expensive. It was out of anything I could have ever afforded. And I just remember feeling what was the word I kept using? Oh, how irresponsible to have a pet that you could not afford the treatment that was offered. But now I think too, Judith, it's how irresponsible of veterinarians to have prices that, because I found out through seeking support that this happens quite commonly. It's a quite common.
Oh, it's quite common, Bunny. I found out with Osland's disease. There was a new a medicine out of China that was not approved by the whoever approves our veterinary medicines. It was approved in the U.S., but it was made in China, and apparently it could reverse this disease. And it was available. You could get it if you went to certain websites and checked it out, but it was like going to cost thousands of dollars. And I wasn't there. This little being was a senior. He was old. I didn't have thousands to spend, and nor did I think it was the right thing to do. Maybe if he was a younger, he was starting out his life, maybe I would have explored it more, but he wasn't. He was in his final, later years. But it was thousands of dollars. I do know people that spend thousands on surgery for their pets. They need a leg removed, or they need they need some kind of surgery. And if the pet is going to be with them a lot more years, and they have the means to do that, then and also there's pet insurance, which covers
Yeah,
some.
pet insurance now.
Pet
Yes.
insurance isn't necessarily very good, but in my experience, but they deny. I had it for a while. They're, they 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 weren't that great, but
Yes.
yeah, some people do spend thousands on their pets if they have the means, and that's, of course, that's a personal choice. But you're
Right.
talking about feeling guilt. Were you feeling
Yes,
guilt?
that's what I'm talking about, unburdening
Yeah.
guilt. And
Mhm.
I do have some numbers that we're going to put up before you at the end of the program to call to get help. But one last area too, Judith, people that have their pets as support animals. Can you imagine losing that? That's been maybe your seeing eye dog or your
Yeah.
support. So
Yeah.
yeah, so I'm bringing this up so that we as a society can become sensitive to the needs of pet owners that then lose their pets. So many scenarios that can really impact the quality of someone's life after the loss of a pet if they don't have support systems, if that's not in place. So Judith, I can't believe we're getting close to time. I promised. I promised that I wouldn't keep you over, and I do want you to read the Rainbow Bridge. And I just want to ask if you have any closing thoughts around pet loss, something you'd like to share from your own experience that you felt was helpful.
Well, just that, one of our mutual friends who just had to put down her cat told me that she realized in making her decision to put down the cat, she realized that she was keeping the cat around for her, not for the sake of the cat, but for her, because of her wanting the cat to be there. And, I guess it's an attachment. And,
Yes.
and that's what I realize. It's very easy to do that,
Oh,
to keep the animal with you longer than really serves them when they're declining, or they're especially if they're in pain, or when their quality of life really goes down.
yes.
The discernment, it's hard. It's because the heart is, you're feeling so much, and you love that companion, and you want them there, and you're used to them in your space, and you're going to miss them. You're going to miss them. And,
Yes.
and yet to have the discernment that it's time is important to, that it's time to let them go, and that it is sometimes the merciful thing to do. And a vet can help with this. A vet can help with coaching about the timing of it.
Mm-hmm.
Although, as I said earlier, as with Aslan, it is unpredictable.
It is. Yes, it
Life
is.
and death are a mystery. I mean, you just don't know when it's going to be. And with Aslan, when I called the vet and told him that he had all of a sudden just crashed, declined just in 2 days, the
Wow.
vet told me about his experience with his grandmother. And he said
Oh,
she had been in the hospital, and she was improving, and they were getting ready to discharge her, and she was going to come home. And then all of a sudden she declined and passed away.
exactly.
It just isn't what they were expecting, but that's what happened. And that's what happened with Aslan. None of us saw it coming, that it was going to be so sudden. Yeah.
Yes, yes,
So
yes.
just feeling into that, the timing of when it's time, and finding some peace with it.
Right. And I always advocate as well to have someone for support, have someone that you can talk to, someone
Mhm.
maybe been through having to either put a pet down or have had a loss of a pet, then can relate to how you're feeling. And that can
Yeah.
be, I feel that can be so helpful. Well, Judith, I just think you're going to have to come back or just
Yeah.
to the surface.
Mm.
I would love for you to share with us the rainbow.
Okay. Okay. And this again was given to me by a friend who came to my memorial for Noche, and she gave this to me, and I've kept it. It's so sweet. So it says, when an animal leaves that has been especially close to us, there is a place just this side. Oh, it's making me
Yeah, just breathe. Just breathe. How about we both just take a breath?
there is a place just this side of heaven known as the Rainbow Bridge. There are meadows. Okay, so now it's describing this place. There are meadows, hills, trees, and flowers for them to smell and roll around in. There is plenty of food, water, and sunshine for them to bask in. They are happy, carefree, and at ease. All the animals that were ill or old are restored to vigor and health. Those who were hurt or maimed are made whole and strong again, just as we remember them in our hearts and minds. Their memories are restored. The animals there are blissful and content. They all run and play together, full of joy and elation. However, there is one small thing
Yeah.
they each miss. There's one small thing they each miss, someone very special to them. Someone who has left, someone who was left behind, someone they love very much. Then comes the day when one suddenly stops and looks into the distance. Their eyes are bright and intent, their eager body quivers. Quivers. Suddenly they begin to separate from the group, flying over the green grass, their legs carrying them as fast as they can.
Oh, sweet, Judith, sweet.
Their head is erect, ears are standing up, and they smell a familiar smell. You have been spotted.
Oh, oh, that is so precious.
They are so excited. They know that it is you. They approach excitedly toward you. Um, Once again, you and your special friends are united. You embrace each other as in joyous reunion, hugging and kissing, remembering your special connection. You reminisce about the extraordinary times you spent together, the laughter, the joy, the caring you shared. You magically know that you will never be separated again. The happy kisses rain upon your face. Your hands again caress their beloved head, ears, and body. You look once more into each other's trusting eyes, so long gone from your life, but never absent from your heart. Then cross, then you cross the rainbow bridge together. You fly with the angels to to magical places you have always wanted to visit. And then it says, and then this person who gave it to me, it says at the bottom, in loving memory of Noche. Wow, I didn't expect to feel so much reading that. But isn't
Oh,
that
Judith,
I mean,
yes,
isn't that
just expressing the love that you have for not only Noche, for Ozzy, Leroy, Ginger, Buffy, Archie. Oh, you're gonna have a full entourage when you get to the Rainbow Bridge. Judith, thank you for your vulnerability and
And
just
of course, this is a construct. It's a belief and it's a construct, and this may or may not be the way it happens, but it was very comforting to receive it. It was
yes,
very comforting to receive it. Yeah.
and know how many people you have touched and comforted just now by reading them.
Oh,
It shows the
yeah.
depth and breadth of your love for your
And the
animals.
the thing that's surprising me is that that I'm feeling so much because, my pets, it's been well over a year since I lost the last one. And the ones I have now were absolutely just loving and sweet. And, one is a therapy cat, I think. So I'm surprised that this much emotion is coming up,
Grief
but
has no timeline. You're
no,
valid. You're showing us grief has no
yeah,
timeline, just like
yeah,
love. Love, the animals may die, but our love for those animals never dies. Our
yeah,
love grows for those animals. So I just thank you for your vulnerability, Judith, for being here with me and sharing this and sharing yourself with the audience. I just so appreciate you. Thank you. And I know you're
you're
over time, but I appreciate it. And
no,
I'm
I'm in good time. It's the right time. It's
good.
the right time.
Uh, right. Well, wonderful. Because I wanted Joe to put up something. Grief, pet loss is such an intensity that there are hotlines and support groups that can help. So if you're in the U.S., Joe, can you put that up? In the U.S., you would call the ASPCA for Pet Loss Hotline. And there's the number 877-474-3310. And you can always send me an email and I can make sure you get this. If you're in the UK, you would call Pet Bereavement Support Services at 0800-096-6606. And if you're in other countries, visit Chance's Spot to find support near you. As I always say, what I always advocate to anyone that's in grief, don't do grief alone. This is when you need help. This is when you reach out. And Judith just showed us what support you can receive. That lovely Rainbow Bridge poem was given to her by someone that wanted to offer her support during her time of bereavement. So as I said, don't do grief alone, reach out. And it's always good to reach out to someone that really can identify with what you're feeling. And we do have people that care that may have never had a pet loss. But I just say, don't try to argue with people that don't understand. Just move along. You are so worthy of having your story heard and shared. And so, Judith, I just want to say thank you. And this has been a more expansive program than I thought.
Me too. Thank you, Bonnie. Thank you for inviting me.
And thank you. And I'm just going to say to the listeners, and in the way that I always end, by asking you to just go and look in the mirror, look in your own eyes, and say, what do I need today? What do I need today? Whatever that need is, whatever comes up, I invite you to honor. So with that said, I say thank you, namaste, your doula for grief. And until we're together next time, be well.
Thank you.
Ciao, Judith. Thank you, darling.
Thank you.
New Thought Radio, music from all your favorite New Thought artists. From Jamie Lula, Karen Drucker, Gary Lynn Floyd, Ricky Byers, Daniel Nahmod, Eddie Watkins Jr., and many, many more. 24/7 New Thought Radio. Positively inspiring.